Yo guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. So I've just jumped on today, as usual, to make my weekly forecast, and this will be the weekly forecast for the week commencing the 31st of January and ending on the 4th of February. So before I jump into the forecast, I will just draw your guys' attention to the written version of this forecast. So everything I'm going to talk about in the video version is actually in this written version, and you can find this written version linked in the description. So if you guys want to see the written version, then just click the link in the description. And before we get started, guys, if you enjoy this forecast, please do subscribe to the channel because it does take me time every weekend to create these forecasts for you guys. Alright, so let's get started. So starting with NZD USD this week. So NZD USD, last week I was considering that we still have the potential to go bullish, but that's completely been eradicated now. And what we've got is a bearish breaker structure on the daily. So following this bearish breaker structure on the daily, I think we're in a pretty clear bearish bias from the daily perspective with NZD USD. Now, considering that, I think it makes sense for us to look at points of interest where we could potentially continue the bearish thesis from. And for me, on the daily, we've got two clear areas to continue sales from. So we've got this daily extreme up here, which is where I think, well, that's basically where the thesis invalidation is. So if we do go above there, then that'll be a bullish breaker structure. So until we break that, I think we've got the overall bearish thesis on the daily. So for me, if we do get up into here, then I'll be looking to take sells out of that area. But I think that maybe is a bit ambitious because it is quite a big retracement and this is a very impulsive move. So I'd be pretty surprised really if we do get that high up into this range. And that's why I've marked this area here. So this area here is basically where the imbalance starts and it's basically the last buying volume before the sell breaker structure. So for me, I think it'll actually make more sense for price to retrace back up into this area and then we'll sell off from there. So from a daily perspective, in terms of looking for sells to continue the bearish thesis, I think coming from either this area at the extreme or more ideally this area down here is absolutely fine. So for me, when we get into those areas, I'll be looking for the lower time frame structure shift and then I'll look to take sells on the lower time frame out of those areas. Now, that said, we are in a very, very impulsive move right now. So even going up to there is still a decent retracement, and that might not happen just based on how impulsive this actual whole move is. So for that reason, I've marked out the most recent 4-hour order block. So looking at the 4-hour structure, we've had a breaker structure here, and that came from this area. So this is your buy to sell, or it's a liquidity manipulation so that they could get their sells. So for me, this is the first area really where we can be looking to continue the sells out of on NZD USD. So start of next week, I'll be looking for price to come up into this area. I'll then be watching, and if we do get that lower time frame structural shift on the, then I will be looking for sells out of this area. And I think it does make perfect sense for us to just continue out of there. That said, however, I do still think that we have these areas from the daily time frame which are also very valid for sells, and especially if we're going to be selling off for quite a while, it might make more sense for the institutions to bring the price back up here before continuing. Now, just while I'm on the 4-hour as well, what I do like about this one, so the previous 4-hour breaker structure was here, and then we've got this one. So this order block here is actually the 4-hour impulsive order block, and it's also that daily base that I spoke about. So for me, really this is the best order block because we've got that multi-time frame confluence on this order block here. And yeah, for me, I'd like to see price come up into there. But like I say, I'm open to price selling away from there, selling away from anywhere in this area, or even coming up to the extreme before then selling away from there. So we'll just have to see what happens with the NZD USD this week. Alright, moving on to AUD USD. So AU, the last few weeks I was looking at this area here for price to sell out of. we didn't actually tap up into the full refinement. We've just filled the imbalance, and then we've actually broken structure again to the law now. So, so on it, AUD USD, we've got 2 consecutive bearish breaks of structure on the daily, which confirms our bearish trend on the daily. And considering that now, we know that we're pretty much going to be looking for sells on the daily for the foreseeable future. So, considering that, what I can basically see is we've got this buy to sell here. So this move here with imbalance is what caused the actual breaker structure. So for me, in terms of the daily, I'll be looking for a retracement up to this area to then sell away from. Now, technically, we do also have this more extreme area up here, so we could see price go into there, but for me, we've already seen that area mitigated by this wick here, and this wick, this candle, sorry, is where the imbalance starts. So that's why I do think that this is the area where we're going to see the sells coming in from on the daily. So yeah, on the daily time frame, I'll look for a retracement up into that area, then I'll be following lower time frame structures to sell out of that area. With that said though, we are in a very impulsive move right now, and for me, I wouldn't be surprised to see us extend the low a bit further before seeing that higher time frame pullback. So that's why I've also marked out the 4-hour structure. So looking at the 4-hour structure, what we've had is the last 2 consecutive break structure, so we know we're still in a bearish trend on the 4-hour, and it's a very impulsive move. So that's left behind 2 clear order blocks. We've got the 4-hour successful retrace order block and the 4-hour impulsive order block. So for me, going into the start of next week, I'll be watching how will price react off these 2 areas. If we do see breakthrough there, then I'll be watching how price reacts off here. But for me, what I'll be looking for is lower time frame structure shifts for us to sell out of this area, and failing that, I'll look for a lower time frame structure shift for us to sell out of this area here. So yeah, AU, I think the first place to look for sells from is going to be this area, and then failing that, we can look for sells out of here. But then yeah, if we do see this area violated as well, then I will be expecting a pullback up into this daily area here. And then unless we saw another break on the daily, even if we do see price extend lower, I will expect that at some point we will end up retracing up here, but that could still be a long time off yet. It doesn't necessarily have to happen this week. Whereas I do think that we are going to see a retracement to at least this area going into the start of this week, hopefully. But that's AU, guys. So, and like I say, if anything's not clear in this video version, then do just check out the written version in the description, because that's got all the information about my forecast in it. Alright, so moving on to pound dollar. So pound dollar, we've broken structure to the high, and now we've got this order block down here. If we wanted, we could refine it down to that candle there, but I'll keep it less refined for now. So in terms of just following this most recent daily breaker structure, I do think that we can anticipate that we're going to get buys out of this area, and I at least think we'll get a substantial reaction for buys, even if it doesn't follow through. So for me, when we do get down into this area, I think it's fine to start looking for lower time frame structural transitions, and then we can start to set buys out of that area. Now, that said though, that could still be a week or 2 away until we do get down here. So I think it's more important to understand what's going on these lower time frames. Alright, so on the 4-hour, what we've had this most recent breaker structure here, and that clearly came from this candle up here, which has imbalance. So for me, going into the start of next week, just following this 4-hour structure, it's going to make sense for price to tap up into there and then just sell off away from that area. And I think that's pretty clean order block, because we've got the imbalance below and it caused a pretty impulsive move there. So I'd be expecting price to probably just come up into here and then sell away from that. That said though, like I marked out last week, we do still have this 4-hour impulsive, so the one that caused the break before the most recent break, and that also left behind an order flow invalidation point. So it wouldn't be too surprising if we did see price violate this lower order block and then come up into the higher order block. So that's why I've got this one drawn on as well. And if we do violate this area and close above it, then I'll expect price to come back up into here before then selling off away from here to then take us into that daily point of interest. So yeah, I mean, not too complicated, I don't think, on the pound dollar this week. We've just got two clear 4-hour order blocks, and it's just a case of watching what happens on the lower time frames as price gets into these areas, and then I will expect that we are going to end up down in this area at some point. And when we do get down there, we can watch lower time frames to then look for buys to continue that daily bullish thesis. Alright, so moving on to euro dollar. So euro dollar, I was looking at buys based on how I analyze the market structure, but clearly we've just smashed through the daily low. So at this point now, I'm happy to transition that thesis, and I'm now looking for sells on euro dollar. So looking at basically this most recent break of structure, we're looking to continue away from the points of interest that caused this most recent daily break of structure. So for me, what I can see is that up here is basically where that whole impulsive move started. We've got this candle here, which is where the imbalance starts. So that's why I've marked the open of the POI as that candle. And then obviously we've got the extreme up here. And if we do break above that, then the bearish thesis will be invalidated. But for me, what I'll be expecting on the daily time frame is that we're going to retrace back up into here, which is the area that caused the break of structure, and then we can look to then sell away from that area to then break structure again on the low. Now, that said, and considering the 4-hour, that is still quite a deep retracement. Doesn't necessarily have to happen, certainly doesn't have to happen right now. So the first point of interest to be looking to sell from is going to be following the 4-hour structure. So on the 4-hour, after we just literally continued away from that 4-hour POI that I marked out last week, and then we've broken structure again twice now. So following this 4-hour structure, what we've now got is this order block here, which caused the most recent break structure. So for me, it would make sense for us to just retrace back up into this area, and then we'll just sell off from there. So yeah, that's the euro dollar for me. Ideally, in the longer term, we can get up here and then we can sell away from there following the daily, and then hope to get that daily break of structure. But in the short term, we are in the 4-hour bearish structure, and we do have this point of interest here to sell away from. So I think it makes sense to be watching this area as we go into next week's market. Alright, so euro pound now. So euro pound, it's still in the same daily structure that I spoke about for the last few weeks. Break structure, then we mitigated, we got another break structure, we mitigated again, and now we've had another break of structure, which has left behind this bullish order block, bearish order block here, sorry. And that whole bullish candle there is the order block for sells on the daily time frames. So looking at that for me, and since we've got imbalance as well, I am expecting that price is going to come up into this area, and then when it does get there, I'll look for sells for us to then continue to the low. And as I spoke about, we've got all this liquidity below the equal lows on the weekly. So I do think we are going to be coming below this liquidity, and then possibly even down to this much higher time frame order block down here. But before that, I would like to see, ideally, that we're going to retrace back up here and then continue lower. Now, that said, I mean, if we don't really, if this structure on the low time frame isn't going to hold, then we could just continue lower without coming back up here. So, you know, this is the ideal situation, but it's definitely not guaranteed that we're going to be retracing higher. But based on the structure, I would like to see price coming back up here. Now, looking at the lower time frame, so we can look at it on the 4-hour, and what we've got on the 4-hour is break structure 1, break structure 2, and then we're now at this lower order block on the 4-hour. But just to clear things up, I'm going to use the 12-hour here. So what we've got on the 12-hour, we've had this sort of accumulation structure here. We've then had price go below to grab liquidity, and then we've seen that break structure to the high. So that's essentially showing that bullish intent that price wants to go higher. So for me, it makes sense for us to buy out of this candle here. So this candle is the sell, which caused this impulsive buy move here, and that's why I've got this point of interest marked on. So for me, going into the start of next week, I think it's going to make sense for us to look to buy out of this area, and then we can take the price up into our daily order block following this 12-hour intent or 4-hour two break structure, depending on how you want to look at it. Now, I am aware that we do just have a lot of bearish momentum in this market up until this point, so it's definitely possible, like I said, that this thesis won't hold and we will just be violating this area before continuing down. But until this area here is violated, I am anticipating we will see the buyers coming into the market to then take us up to mitigate these daily order blocks before we then see that next daily break structure. So that is the euro pound this week. So finally, we've got pound yen. So pound yen, similar to pound dollar, we have this most recent bullish break structure. Now, in the previous weeks, I spoke that we could either look for buys from here, or we could be looking at buys out of this area here. Now, for me, I do still think it makes more sense for price to come down here, but it is a big retracement, and if we are going to see that bullish price action on pound yen, then it could easily just go from this daily base here. And what we are seeing right now is that price has actually done a trend transition on the 3-hour away from this daily base. So I'll just show you guys that now. So we've reacted off this area from a daily time frame, which could be seen to cause the overall break of structure. Now we've broken structure once here on the 3-hour, and then we've broken structure again on the 3-hour there. So after the first break of structure, we've pretty much come back to this area here. Oh, sorry guys. Technically this is only one break structure, so I'll just go at it from the 4-hour now. Alright, so looking at the 4-hour, we've broken structure from here, and that's basically, the thing is that because these candles don't close below this candle here, I'd see this as one big move. So technically our low is still down there to continue the buys away from. So in terms of what's possible, I do think that we could see price coming down into these extremes before then buying up further following the 4-hour intent. But then looking at the 2-hour, we do have that actual trend transition, which is what I thought was happening on the 3-hour, but I got that wrong with my analysis. But on the 2-hour, we do have the overall structural trend transition, and that's from basically we got the break structure there, then we've got another breaker structure, so this is now our low. So basically on pound yen, the start of next week, we could be seeing price just buy up out of here following this reaction off a daily base, and then we'll take price up there. Failing that, based on the 4-hour breaker structure, what we could see is price comes further down into this area down here before then buying up out of there, and then we can target that area there. So that's following the 4-hour instead of the 2-hour. But considering what was happening last week and the fact that we basically got this pattern of impulse and then we've got the correction, so the momentum's lesser in this direction than it was in that direction, I do think that we're probably not going to be seeing that full bullish transition right now. And what we're probably seeing is basically this area being used as a reaction point to pull back into this order block here, which is the order block I forecasted from last week to continue the bearish order flow which started up here, and then that will take us down into this daily extreme. So sorry if that wasn't super clear guys, I got a bit shook there by the mistake in my analysis, but basically we're going to be looking for buys out of the 2 hour or the 4 hour to then take us up to this area here, which is a fresh supply order block which hasn't been mitigated yet. Then out of this area, continuing the order flow that I spoke about in previous weeks, I'll look for sells, and I'll expect that those sells will then take us down into this area here, and then we can look for buys out of that area following the daily break structure to the high. So yeah, that's pound dollar pound yen this week. So we're basically looking at a corrective bullish move up into this area, and then we can look to sell away from this area, which has clear imbalance and is also the bullish order flow, bearish order flow invalidation. So for me, I'm expecting this pullback, sell away from there. That'll take us down into the daily order block, and then once we are at that daily order block, we can then look to take buys away from that to continue the bullish thesis on the daily. Alright guys, so sorry for that mistake at the end there, but thank you very much for watching my analysis this week if you're still here. And if you did enjoy it, then please subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more of my content, then check out my channel, or please subscribe if you do want to see more future content. And like I've said guys, I've got the written version of this analysis, which I'll be linking in the video description. So if you guys want to see the written version, then do just check out the link in the video description. And if you guys want to learn about the strategy that I use, how I analyze markets, or anything about trading psychology, then do check out the rest of the links in the video description, because there's a lot of good resources linked in the description. Alright, so thanks for watching guys. Hope you all have a safe trading week and stick to your trading plans. So cheers guys, have a good one.